Hey, what's up YouTube? I'm gonna hop right into it. Today I wanted to talk about ADHD and burnout. So, first things first, let's just hop right into it. You know how it is here, we're fast. So, ADHD burnout, what you've likely seen and heard from people is it's sort of like this: you're doing a task and you're doing the task and you're forcing yourself to do the task, and then, oh, I really don't want to do the task anymore, and you stop doing the task and the task doesn't get done. And then you do nothing for a while and you like watch YouTube or do something unproductive and it's whatever. You maybe try again and it doesn't work, right? Like that's what most people think that burnout is. That is not burnout. I can assure you that that is not burnout. But burnout is a real danger, and you do need to be aware of what it is and how to avoid it. You can push yourself to some pretty insane limits. However, just because you can doesn't always mean you should. It's not necessarily the most efficient thing to be. The way I say it is it's not necessarily the most efficient to be at 100% efficiency. It's not. And I'm going to take this back to engines, which actually I'm going to talk about reactors. So if you know anything about nuclear power, that's cool. If you don't, you'll still be able to understand this. It'll be easy. So I'm going to break this down for you. Last video I talked about reactors in one way. I'm going to talk about it a different way. So you don't need to watch the last video. But your reactor is essentially your internal mindsets, is the way you can think about it. And it's your ability to redirect passion and manage energy. So it's the set of mindsets you have that have basically automated your ability to get back on task and specifically to be working on your needle mover. What is your needle mover? Your needle mover is the one task that will move the needle forward the most. You only ever want one. I'm going to say that. You only ever want one. Why? Because ADHD is like a sniper rifle. It's very binary. Where it's either like you're unfocused or you're really focused. Okay? So what you want is you want to get into a flow state, which for ADHD we call this hyperfocus because it's even more intense than a neurodivergence flow state. You want to be in a hyperfocus state on your needle mover. This is that state where you basically forget to eat while you're working on something, right? That's what you want. So, and that's cool. That's great that we have that. And your reactor is your set of mindsets. And you can also think of it as your systems, right? But I'm going to change that in a second here. You're going to see why. So redirecting your passions, your desires, and you can think of this reactor as it takes fuel, right? Now, ADHD is naturally optimized for hotter fuel types. And what do I mean by that? Well, hotter fuel types are things that are more, how would I put this? Hotter fuel types are things like competitive or passion. Or this is a bad one. You don't want to use this. This is kind of what we do when we set deadlines for ourselves and then have that like last minute deadline anxiety. That's fear. And fear is a type of hot fuel type that you can use for the reactor. And it works. And it works well because ADHD is optimized for hot fuels, right? But just because we're optimized for hot fuels doesn't mean that we have to run hot fuels. And like I said before, or I don't know if I said it, I did. It's not necessarily efficient to run at 100% efficiency, and I'll tell you why. Because you can use these and you can run and you can make this 100% efficient and you can be like the goal addicted athlete and you're just like crushing it in hyperfocus states every single day. But hot fuel types are going to damage the reactor slowly, and they're going to create maintenance. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're doing this, you're likely I can tell you for sure, you're forgetting to eat. And you should have a system for that, but that's a super thing, is like you're forgetting to eat. And when you are at 100% efficiency, when you are at like, you're getting close to 100%. You're not at 100%, but when you're getting close to 100%, and this is when you know you're in danger of burnout, is when you basically reach a state where you're like kind of going insane and you just don't want to stop working. You just want to work, and you're like competitive about it, and you like push through the resistance. And it's good to have that, right? It's good to be in that for a little bit. There's a time for that sprint. There's a time for pushing through and being engaged and being competitive and like just crushing the needle mover. Okay? But when you get to that point where it's like you want to work and it's almost like nothing can stop you from working, then you are in the danger zone, right? And it's not necessarily like you need to cut it off immediately, but you are in danger. So like this is the time to be aware. Because what ADHD burnout actually is it's when your hyperfocus, and it's just like a nuclear reactor. You can think of it as you hit a point of criticality. And then after you hit criticality, it's a runaway reaction. And it's like everything else in your life is going to start taking a back seat, and you're only going to be focused on this thing. And because you're using, let me tell you something about hot fuels. And our reactors are optimized for hot fuels. They always come with a little toxicity. And a little bit is fine. You can think about competitiveness. Even like no matter how virtuous your competitive nature is, it's still a little toxic, because the whole point of competition is to crush something else. And in this case, it's your past you, right? Because you're chasing the transformation. That's the way I like to think about it. When you work on your needle mover, that's when you're transforming. That is inherently a little toxic, right? And fear is extremely toxic. So all of the hot fuels have a little bit of toxicity in them, okay? So you need to be careful with that, because a little bit is fine. But when you hit criticality and you start having a runaway reaction, and it's almost like you can't stop yourself from hyperfocusing because you have so much momentum, then you're in danger. Because what's going to happen is if you keep going like that, you're eventually, you can kind of think of it as like your reactor falls apart. Like it's like it gets melted from the inside. Like what actually happens in a nuclear reactor. Your mindsets fall apart, and a telltale sign that this is going to happen is when you have sharp increases in anxiety that lasts all day, and depersonalization. And when you're depersonalized, you can't even really observe yourself well enough to notice that something is wrong. That's really dangerous, because you won't even realize that this is happening. But again, the point when you know that it's starting to happen is when it feels like you are so addicted to work that you put other things off. And that's okay a little bit, but when it starts to happen so consistently where it's like your life is falling apart, then you know that you're about to have burnout. And what you need to do is you need to hit the brakes. Like it's not really, like if you catch it early enough, you can stop it. You can hit the brakes. You can basically switch to moving to more chill tasks. and you can stabilize. I want to give you something hopeful though, is that if you ever do burn out, there is a way back. There is a way back, and you're going to tank, and it's going to be hard, and you're going to feel really like you don't want to work on that task anymore. Your emotional health is going to be crap, probably for like a week at least, maybe longer. And you're probably going to get nothing done for a while, right? But the way you get back is not by rolling over and doing nothing. You have to think of it like physical therapy. It's like you got to get back into work. And again, because our reactors run hot, you're probably still going to have to use a little bit of at least passion, right? So what you need to do is you need to take it easy, and you need to just focus on the work that you enjoy. And if you don't really enjoy it, that's fine too, but try and find ways to make it enjoyable. And then stay in more chill workflows, right? Like instead of putting on the neural phase locking hyperfocus music, put on some lo-fi and just work on something very exploratory. Study, figure out, start building your systems a little bit more, your accessibility systems. Just do some off task things. That's really how you beat burnout, is by doing some like off chill tasks. And there's a ton of them that are backlogged. I can guarantee that, right? Like if you don't have a system for everything, you can work on your systems. And that's like, and how I said earlier, like I'd talk about systems in a sec, is you can kind of think about your accessibility systems as the plant itself, where that's actually where the real multiplier is. Like when you upgrade those systems, what you're doing is the supporting infrastructure for the reactor. And you can think of you as the reactor. Once you do that, work on the systems. What that does is it makes the work easier unto the point where you can do less and you can not have to work so hard, not have to be so hyper-focused to get the same amount done, right? So that's why working on your systems is inevitably the multiplier, which means that being at 100% efficiency, 90% efficiency, 85% efficiency isn't necessarily the most efficient. I think probably the most, if you could like 77% of your current potential of what you think you can currently do is where you should be aiming for, number of completion. It's a really good ratio, honestly. That's kind of what I got today. Focus on what you should be focusing on, your needle mover. Be in that flow 77% of the time. Outside of that, be doing the things that you do to make you happy. I'll say this. If you take 1 or 2 days off every week, you should never run into burnout. So my suggestion is that you always have 1 day off every week. But if you notice that on that day off, you're like itching to work, you're itching to be productive, and it's like you're like crawling in your skin and you just like want to get back to work, like that's like you're a workaholic at that point, and that's what will make you burnt out. It's like ADHD burnout is not you pushed yourself too hard and then you failed and you crashed. ADHD burnout is you became addicted to work and you kept going at it when you shouldn't have, and then you crashed. It's much more dangerous, right? Because then it also leaves you, when you're at the bottom, you're like feeling helpless because all you want to do is work, and your brain is like totally fried. So that's your warning. The default work system works very well. All the things I taught you in the past have worked very well, and that's what we've been doing, is we've been kind of tweaking your reactor setup and getting you more efficient to run hot fuels, specifically passion and competition. And this analogy extends further. So I'm going to make a second video about this, about how, well, you'll see. You'll see. So that's what I've got for you today. Make sure you don't burn out. Make sure you stay safe. Stay responsible with your productivity. You probably didn't know that you could be so productive that it's dangerous to yourself. You can. So please take care of yourself. Don't get burnt out. But also, don't convince yourself that you're going to be burnt out unless you have those days where it's an off day and you're like itching and you're like going crazy, right? So that's my warning to you. That's ADHD burnout. Have a good one. God bless.